Hi boys and girls, we're going to go ahead and get started on lesson 12.2, describing data collection. Your objective today is I can describe a data set by stating what quantity was measured and how it was measured. Now remember yesterday we talked about data is those information about people or things that we collect. Sometimes it's from a survey, sometimes we're asking questions, sometimes we go out and do an experiment. A couple of different ways we collect. So write down these two observations. These are going to help you today when you do your experiment. You need to know what an observation is. An observation, it means to look, but it's the number of data values in your data set. How many times, or like one way to put this is if you were trying to see the height of students, depending on how many students you asked how tall they were, that would be the number of observations that you had. Another thing that you'll look at is the attributes. Attributes is something like color, length, weight, speed, and that's what we're going to be looking at our data set. So, for example, again, if you're seeing how tall students are in the class, the attribute would be height. Okay, that's what you're measuring. Alright, so here's our first example. Quickly pause your video and jot these things down in your notebook so that you have them. But we're looking at, so pause your video. You don't have to do it quickly, just make sure that you write down this information so that you have it. Now, we're looking at this chart, okay? We're going to be using this chart, and we're going to be using the situation and the questions here. Jeffrey has a hobby of collecting rocks and minerals. The chart gives data on garnets he found, garnets is a type of rock, he found during a recent mineral hunting trip. So it looks like he went on a rock hunting trip. You need to identify the attribute being measured, the unit of measure, the likely means by which measurements were made, and the number of observations. So I'm going to help you to look at this data right here and know where you can find these different four things on the chart and what they mean. So first of all, the attribute being measured is what is he looking at? What is he comparing? When he looks at the garnet, what is he measuring? So take a look at this data right here. So it's our garnet data. We're looking at this top heading. So he has garnet and then numbers below it. So that's how the first garnet, okay? And then it looks like he is pulling the mass. Mass is like the weight. Okay, so he is measuring the mass of each garnet. Do you see that? So what is he measuring? He's measuring mass. So, oh wait, sorry, I'm not going to tell you what he's measuring yet. But you're looking to see what is he measuring. Okay, usually you're going to find this in the subheadings on your charts. Now, the unit of measure, what is he measuring with? He's using, do you see how his mass, he's using grams right here. So this is going to be something like grams or maybe inches, okay? Maybe he's measuring something else like number, okay, sometimes like a number of pets. So it just depends on what he's measuring. Now the likely means by which measurements were made, how do you think he measured the weight? What do we usually use to measure weight? It actually doesn't say anywhere on this chart. What do we usually use to measure weight? Okay, that's what you're going to think of. And the number of observations, that's how many different garnets did he look at. So we're going to find that by counting up these numbers here. So how many did he look at? Okay, and then on the next slide we're going to actually fill in these answers. This one is how did he... Sorry, I'm not writing very well today. How did he measure? Okay, so this next slide is going to have these questions again. But now we're going to actually answer them. Now the attribute Jeffrey measured was the mass of the garnets. Remember, he's measuring the mass or the weight of them. The unit used to measure the mass of the garnets was grams. What else could he have used? Maybe he could have used pounds, maybe ounces. He chose grams. Now, to measure the mass in grams, he probably used a scale. Would it make sense for him to measure weight with a ruler? No. Would it make sense for him to measure weight with a stopwatch? No, those don't make sense. But usually with mass or weight, we would use a scale. And the number of observations Jeffrey made, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He made 12 observations. Okay, so it's as simple as that, to go ahead and pull these numbers from a chart and describe the data set. So let's look at this one here. You're going to describe the data set, this is your try it problem, by listing the attribute he measured, the units of measure, the likely way that he measured it, and the number of observations. So we have Greg's 100-meter race results. 100 meters is once around a track, okay? What is the attribute he's measuring? Take a look at this. What is he measuring here? Is he measuring the height of the runners? Is he measuring the distance they traveled? Is he measuring how long it took them to travel? What is he measuring? That's the attribute. How is he measuring that? What unit? And how would he probably have done that? What tool did he use? And then the number of observations. So pause your video, record this, write your answers, and then play so that you can see if you got the answers correct. Alright, I went ahead and filled in the answers to these questions. Check your work, and if you have not done it correctly, you'll want to make sure you ask if you have any questions on it, or re-watch the video and see how I solved the previous question to see what you did wrong. Okay, here's your experiment. This will be fun. So it's going to take you some time, but that's why this video is shorter. Okay, you're going to work with other students to collect data on the length of, where's my laser? On the length of the student's index fingers in your group. Now your index finger is your finger next to your thumb, just so that it's your pointer finger, okay? Fill in the chart with your data. On the next slide, I'll show you what your chart's going to look like. But first of all, so think about what we're doing. We're measuring index fingers of students in our class. What attribute are we measuring? We are measuring the length of index fingers. And we are going to use inches. Okay? You could use centimeters, but I like inches better. Now, how will you make your measurements? What are you going to use? Are you going to use a scale to make these measurements? No. You're going to use a ruler. Make sure you find a ruler or borrow one from a buddy. Okay? And what data will you include? You're going to include the length of their finger, but you're also going to include the student name and their name. So make sure you write down whose name you're using. You need to collect at least 7 observations. So maybe you're going to use your own finger and then 6 friends, or you can do 7 people that are different than you. So in your notebook, copy down this chart. That's what you're going to start with. Then go around and start measuring people's index fingers. Make sure that you're very accurate. You write down the name of the student and the length of their index fingers and collect all of this data. Okay? So this will be on the try it side of your notebook. So go ahead and pause the video here and get started on that. When you are done, come back to your video and continue to watch because I'm going to show you the next activity. Alright, I hope your experiment went well and that you have all of your data collected for your length of index fingers. I'm interested to know, or to find out, who has the longest and who has the shortest index fingers in the class, or at least in your set of data. Now, here's the next thing that you're going to do. You're going to do another experiment, but you get to choose what you're going to study. You're going to collect data on one of the topics below. Work with other students and create a chart in your notebook to record your data. Now you can decide which one you want to do. You can do the number of family members in people's family, maybe the number of pets in the family, The number of pages in books, that one you could do by yourself if maybe you're doing this at home. The length of forearms, which is the elbow to the fingertip, that's similar to the length of the index finger. And the length of time to multiply two-digit numbers. So kind of like a 36's test. This one's a little bit of an enriched one. So if you're feeling like you want a challenge, go for this one, okay? Now in your data set, you have to collect at least 7 observations. You need to show your work by creating a chart. Alright, so I'm going to finish up this video, but you'll want to keep it on your screen so that you can remember what you're going to do to come back to it. Once you've collected your data, you're going to answer these questions below your chart. And this is what the teacher's really looking for in order to check off your work that it's done correctly. You're going to answer these 4 questions. What attribute did you measure? How did you make these measurements? What data did you include in your chart? Did you have names, number of pets, number of pages, inches, seconds, whatever it was, what did you include? And how many observations did you make? I know it says you have to make at least 7. You can do more than that if you want to. These might be some good questions to ask yourself before you get started. This will help you set up your chart. But then come in and answer these questions when you're done. When you're finished with this video or with your experiment, make sure you do your homework and your appetizers and maybe start working on your main course. That could be a good idea for today. And I hope that you enjoy this activity. I really think it'll be fun for you. I hope you guys have a great day of learning.